A thing is what it is and not something else. Robert Parker. There are some ideas so absurd that only an intellectual could believe them. George Orwell. Hi, I'm Frank Speidel, a retired emergency physician and recovering hospital administrator, and welcome to the Doctor's Inn. In this program, the intent is not to practice medicine or provide medical advice. For your healthcare decisions, we recommend you consult your primary family physician. With the help of our guests, we hope to provoke respectful, informed discussions of healthcare to the benefit of our community. Now, I have argued that delusion has become a growth industry throughout our republic. Not surprisingly, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has supported my assertions about delusional thinking. In a descent into Orwellian newspeak, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission in 2023 published Section 41.206 in reference to sex discrimination in the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, PHRA. The term sex as used in the PHRA and PPFEOA includes all the following: pregnancy, sex assigned at birth, gender, including a person's gender identity or gender expression, affection or sexual orientation, including heterosexuality, homosexuality, bisexuality, and asexuality. 5, difference of sex development variations of sex characteristics and other intersex characteristics. The remarkably muddled syntax of Section 41.206 challenges comprehension. The PHRA, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act of 1955, the intent of this act was to prohibit discrimination based on race, color, familial status, religious creed, ancestry, age, sex, national origin, handicap or disability, including the use of guide or support animals because of blindness or deafness of the user, or because the user is a handler or trainer of guide support animals. Section 6 of the PHRA establishes the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, PHRC, for the administration of this act. Section 6B establishes 11 members for terms of 5 years appointed by the governor to administer the PHRA. No more than 6 may be from the same party. In the PHRA, sex is mentioned 39 times. Gender is never mentioned. So what's the problem? PHRC Section 41.206 was acting to correct what the PHRA had gotten wrong in not equating gender and sex. Sex and gender are not the same. In many languages and cultures, gender is arbitrary. Inanimate objects may be assigned male or female genders despite lacking sex chromosomes. In English, ships have been traditionally assigned the female gender. This is consistent with the Latin word for ship, novus, which is feminine noun. Gender is mutable, free from consistent mapping in nature. Gender is an arbitrary construction. Sex has a consistent mapping in nature. In the sex chromosomes, XX for females, XY for males. In humans, we label as males and females based on sex, which is a physiologic difference, sometimes subtly, sometimes significantly. To be sure, there are chromosome mutations and miscombinations, but XY individuals or males are physiologically different from XX individuals, which are females. Consistent with the immutable quality of gender, an individual may identify as a gender different from their sex, but identifying as a gender is different from the sex does not change the sex and physiology. I may identify as a helium-filled balloon, but stepping off a roof has immutable consequences no matter how I identify. Equating gender and sex also has consequences. I have made multiple invites to the PHRC to send a representative to discuss the differences between gender and sex. They neither respond to emails nor do they answer phone calls. To bring clarity to this conflict, I am honored to host Dr. Beth Ann Rosica. Dr. Rosica is a tireless advocate for getting the education of our children right. She is persistently informed and analytic. Dr. Rosica, welcome to the Doctor's Inn. What did I get wrong?
Having me on the show, Frank. I don't think you got anything wrong.
Oh, you're raising the bar. Traditionally, our culture believes that our freedoms end where another person's nose begins. Could allow individuals of the male sex, not gender, to compete against female sex participants. Could that be harmful to the female participants physically, economically, emotionally?
All of the above, Frank. I've been talking about this issue for quite some time now because many people think that this issue is hypothetical. They think that there aren't really biological boys or biological men competing against biological girls. And it is happening here in our local community. And I have been speaking out about this. There's a situation in Downingtown School District where there is a 8th grade boy who is playing on the girls' lacrosse team. Up in Plymouth Whitemarsh High School, there is a biological boy who is competing in track and field events on the girls' team. And in that particular case, that boy, he is a biological boy, is taking spots away from biological girls. So that person qualified for the state track meet, which is a very big honor. You have to have very specific times, and only the top 20 athletes in the top, scoring in terms of your lowest times get to compete. And he took a spot away from a girl. So taking away her opportunity to run, her opportunity to maybe get scholarship money from colleges. And then these girls are forced to share bathrooms and locker rooms with these biological boys. So yes, Frank, there is a lot of physical, emotional, and outcome harm that opportunities are being denied to women.
Looking back on volleyball, that seems like a little gentle sport with an inflated ball. Can you get hurt in volleyball?
You can get hurt in any sport, yes. First of all, Frank. Yes. I mean, nothing is foolproof. And maybe your listeners are aware there is a college volleyball player, Peyton McNabb, who was forced to compete in college against a biological man who smashed her face with a volleyball, ending her career and causing her brain damage. She has brain injuries to this day that she will never fully recover from as a result from that biological boy smacking that ball in her face. Men and boys are physically stronger than women. They are faster. That is why we have men's and women's, boys and girls categories. If everything was the same, we would not need boys and girls categories.
Thank you. You led into my next question was going to be besides the physical advantages, is there also differences and advantages related to age? Do we segregate competitors based on age at times?
Absolutely. I mean, yes. you have middle school competitions, even within our own Commonwealth here, Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Association. There are sports that are regulated for middle school kids, and then there are sports regulated for high school kids. And so, yes, age has a very big play in this. Look at anybody that runs marathons. There are age categories. The Boston Marathon, probably the most famous one, just run a couple of weeks ago. They have time qualifications based on sex and based on age. So yes, all of these things are very important. And just to note, the Boston Marathon recently, they also allow biological men to compete in the women's category, even though they have a non-binary category. So they have a non-binary category, a men's category, and a women's category. But if a biological man wants to compete in the women's category, he can, and he did, and we allow this. So imagine this for a moment, Frank, that a biological man could win the men's division of the Boston Marathon, the women's division of the Boston Marathon, and the non-binary division. Yes, yes. Oh, and just one last piece on that. By the way, the qualifying times for the non-binary division are the same times to qualify as a woman.
I never knew that. I am stunned. We have reached the inner hubs of crazy thought. So we create a biologic male category, and we create a biologic female category. We morph them into genders.
Yes.
Which takes away the biology.
Yes.
And then we create a to be determined category, or what's it? It's a
non-binary.
A non-binary category. Wouldn't you? I'm just absolutely breathless at this. It speaks to an intellectual corruption beyond dimension. How can did people, the good citizens of Boston, just go,
Well, that's the Boston Marathon Committee made those decisions, so that's what they're allowing. And part of it is because of what's happening throughout our country. And, bringing it back to here in Pennsylvania, that's absolutely what the Pennsylvania Human Rights Relations Commission has done, is they unilaterally changed this definition from sex to include gender and gender identity. And they did this in 2023. The Human Relations Commission is not elected by anyone. These are bureaucrats that, they go to work and this is their job. And they made this decision to make this change, and they pushed it through.
Fascinating. Traditionally in our society, in the culture we have inherited since the end of the 18th century, we have a government. There are parts of government that do different things. There is a part of the government that makes the laws. Mm-hmm. And that part of the government is elected by the people. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like the Pennsylvania Human Relations Committee decided to make a law.
Well, that's what I believe. I think that that's what they did. They believe that the legislature gives them the wide berth of authority to make interpretations, and they believe that they could expand the definition of sex to be more inclusive of what the current situation is. So that's why they think that they had the ability to do that.
This is the most amazing expansion of something that seems, in the original document, the original PHRC, gender is never mentioned.
No. I mean, gender is, Frank, gender is a fairly new construct that, people are using interchangeably with the term sex. And part of this goes back to the Biden administration when they tried to change the definitions in Title IX. The wording that the PHRC is using is identical to the changes that the Biden administration tried to make in Title IX, even before it was enacted. But I'm sure that the PHRC knew that this was the language that the Biden administration was going to try to push through, and they just jumped on the bandwagon and got ahead of the curve. And now it is enforceable here in Pennsylvania. Every school district in Pennsylvania is required to follow the PHRC regulations. And I was actually just looking, I'm doing a little sampling of local school districts, probably about half, based on my, very brief analysis so far, have actual policies that state that based on the PHRC regulations, we are required to allow transgender students to use the bathroom of their choice. So if Johnny decides today that he identifies as a girl, he can use the girls' bathroom at any moment in time. And the school districts are saying that we have to do that because that's what the PHRC regulations require us to do. And this is happening not just in high schools, Frank. This is in elementary school. Elementary school boys can go into the girls' bathroom.
What remedy are there for our communities to get the concept that there is a difference between sex and gender, and that things are better when we separate based on sex as people are developing. How can we fight this? How can we?
Well, I mean, we have to get the PHRC regulations overturned. I mean, that's number one. I'm involved in a lawsuit that we're trying to do exactly that, that states that we don't believe that the PHRC had the authority to enact those regulations. So we'll see what happens with that, but legislation takes a long time. Lawsuits, litigation takes a long time. So, parents have to keep pushing back at school board meetings. The problem is that the school boards are relying on the PHRC language. They feel like they will get sued on the other side if they don't allow this to happen. But we know that it's not safe. I've talked to parents whose children are afraid to use the bathroom during the day at public school, and they basically wait until they get home, until the end of the day, to use the bathroom because they're afraid of what might happen.
Sometimes holding positions of authority requires you to be a little bit brave. Mm-hmm. Being on a school board is a position of authority. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're going to have to be a little bit brave and do the right thing. Yeah. Our history, the history of the 20th century, especially the mid part of the 20th century, is not taught well enough. When people go along with horrible ideas just to get along, to go along, because somebody told me to do this. What's wrong with our school boards that they cannot stand up? And I'm sure that some members of school boards are doing this and saying, this is nonsense.
Right. No, that it is true. And like I said, that some school districts have specific transgender policies on the bathroom. Others do not have those policies and probably deal with it on a case-by-case basis. So there is variation on the way that is dealt with. And there are districts out in the western part of the state that are like, yeah, we're not doing any of this. So, and it's similar, Frank. It's no different than when we dealt with school closures, when we dealt with masking, when our Secretary of Health, mandated masks in schools without a state of emergency. Many school districts in the state said, yeah, we're not doing that. We don't think you have the authority. And they pushed back. Sadly, here in southeastern Pennsylvania, in the collar counties, we have a lot of sheep here in these counties, and they are just unwilling to stand up and do the right thing.
It's breathtaking. You've got a lot of work to do, great lady. Somehow, in looking at this, in reading about it, I was reminded of that. There's a great mathematician, polymath, Kurt Gödel. He's responsible for the formulating a thing called I think it's called the Gödel paradox. It's where the Gnosos, the Cretan, says, no Cretan can tell the truth. It is the self-contradiction is wired hard into it. That one sentence contradicts itself from start to finish, no matter how you change it. When we segregate people by genders, males and females, or segregate them by their physiologic sex, is there a paradox there? When people start changing that intrinsic genetic difference, the verifiable by chromosome difference of sex and gender, we've gotten into an awful kind of swirling circle of inconsistency. Do you ever see people becoming aware of this?
Well, I think that the people who defend these things are very much concerned with the rights of transgender children. And they're worried about them getting bullied. They're worried about creating problems. And, they look at people like me and say that, we're insensitive, we're transphobe, we're homophobe. And that is really not the issue here. Everybody deserves to be safe. My issue is that in an attempt to affirm transgender children, we've basically taken away the rights of women and girls. Title IX was initially enacted to protect women, to protect girls, and now we've set the women's rights movement back 100 years by saying, well, this person with a penis can use your private space. It's not right. I don't want to use a bathroom with a biological man. If I had a daughter, I wouldn't want her to use a bathroom with a biological man. And I certainly don't want my own sons using the girl's bathroom. And I would never let them do that. So I do find that the argument is somewhat ludicrous to me. I mean, women are the only people that can have babies. Nobody else, there's nobody else, no matter who you want to be or who you want to become, you cannot grow a human being in your body. You cannot breastfeed if you are not a biological woman. So there are facts of nature, as you said, that are immutable, and we have to be willing to say that. I'm not saying that we should bully or discriminate against transgender children. I don't believe that at all. These are confused kids that have a lot of issues, that need a lot of support and need a lot of help. But we're actually not doing them any favors by allowing them to use the bathroom of their choice to create these lightning rod issues with parents. We're not doing the right thing. Have a separate bathroom, have a transgender bathroom, have a non-binary bathroom, a single stall bathroom that they can use when they want. But really what a lot of times what the schools do is they say, well, the girls who are uncomfortable with the boys using the bathroom, they can use the single bathroom. That is happening. That is happening. And so again, we're creating issues where they really don't need to be there. And all of this stems from these PHRC regulations.
I think you've probably been to a couple board meetings of different educational groups. Do you ever find that when it's public discussion, there is frequently a time limit? And that is almost prevents a real discussion, a real dialogue of what's happening in our schools. Am I being overly sensitive about that?
No, but I mean, to be fair, every public meeting, generally, whether you're in a municipality or whether you're at a school board, they limit the time that everybody can talk to 2 to 3 minutes, simply because if they have 100 people, they're going to be there all night. The real issue is that school boards do not engage with the community in a real way. I have been a huge advocate of having meetings with school board members in informal ways, to have conversations, to be able to bring up concerns, to be able to bring up issues so that you can have a real dialogue. Our current system of public meetings does not afford for that.
Again, would you explain how you see creating a system where some real dialogue could occur? I think you and I have both sort of dialogued at different times with people that we are trying to move in the right direction.
Right. No, I mean, I think it's very simple. I think you have community forums on a regular basis where the board members are there, where there's an agenda with certain topics. People could email what topics they would like to discuss, and you set aside 2 hours and you say, okay, we're going to have a moderated discussion about this. I think that it's a very simple solution, but most board members aren't interested in doing that. But, Frank, one thing that I do want to point out that we should talk about with the PHRC, specifically about their commissioners. So there is a group of people that are supposed to oversee the PHRC staff. And this commission is supposed to have 11 members.
Six of one party and 5 of the other.
Yes, or if you could have an independent, but you cannot have any more than 6 people from the same political party. And these commissioners are appointed by the governor, and they are voted for approval in the Senate. Well, right now, there are only 7 of the 11 commissioner positions are filled. It has been that way since 2018. And every single commissioner, all 7 of them, are on expired terms. So nobody has been appointed to the commission since 2018. The Senate has not been able to vote on anybody to be approved since 2018. And I'm sure this will come as no surprise to you. 6 of the current members are Democrats and 1 is a Republican. So the balanced idea that was enacted into law to have 11 people with no more than 6 from one political party is completely out the window. Our governor, Josh Shapiro, who has ambitions to do many things, has been remiss in his work. He likes to brag that he gets stuff done. Well, one of the things that he's required to do, and that's the language in the law, that the governor shall appoint. So
yes.
it's not
May.
He could appoint, he is at his leisure to appoint. Shall means he must, and he has not.
Perhaps our governor sees getting things done as keeping his party a majority of power.
Well, one is left asking that question because it seems very odd that we would have all of these positions unfilled, and maybe that was the intent. Maybe with the lack of Republican representation on the commission was at their leisure to push through these regulations. Now, to be fair, I did reach out to the one Republican who is on the board, and he is the chair of the commission, and he was very supportive and very proud of these regulations.
I'm stunned. And that person is an attorney, too, I think.
Yes, he is an attorney, yes, up in Bucks County.
Oh, well. Beyond this interesting discussion about gender versus sex and all the ramifications that come from that, one of the things in looking at all this material that bothered me was that the PHRC does not respond to ask for comments. If you call them, there will be a person that answers the phone, and then they will shuffle you off to some other person who's not just necessarily a commissioner, but is one of their many, many, many staff people. And you'll get their voicemail, and you'll leave a respectful message and saying, could somebody call me? I'm confused about this. Nothing with an agenda, just a neutral thing. I want to understand this better. And I am stunned that you call and you leave these messages and nobody calls you back. Mm-hmm. You've had that experience too, I suspect, except for it sounds like you got through to the commissioner. You'll have to tell me the magic formula for doing that.
Well, I emailed the commissioner. I tracked him down at his law firm and found his email address, and I reached out to him via email. I have sent requests to comments to the communications people over at the PHRC, and they have responded to me previously with a very short, canned response that regardless of what the federal government is doing, Pennsylvania has these laws, and we're sticking with our laws, and we're doing what we said we're going to do. So they have been very clear that they have no intention to back down, regardless of what executive orders have been issued at the federal level.
Beth Ann, speaking with you always informs me, and I'm going to have to sign up for your seminars, how to get people to respond to emails and calls. Thank you again for being the voice for our students, our young folks growing of age and coming of age here. For those of you who have taken the time to listen to this wonderful presentation on the difference of sex and gender, and it's not just a simple thing, it's got substance, and it affects everybody. Thanks for watching The Doctor Is In. Stay safe.